I'm just inviting everyone.
Definitely.
Let's see. I think we have 8. Can you guys hear me okay?
Perfect.
All right.
Mhm.
Yes.
Very cool. All right. Who's from furthest away?
Washington.
Ah,
Not too bad.
that'll probably win.
Brazil here.
Oh, right. Sorry. Lucas from Brazil. That's right.
Never mind.
Oh, slam dunk. I talked with Luca last week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, somebody's outside. We installed this 80-inch monitor on the wall outside,
Mhm.
and they just put in the sound system, and somebody's playing Pantera out there. It's pretty loud. Let's see, how many we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 people. All right, I'm gonna send another invite. Let's see. Obviously, don't re-accept the invite. While we're waiting, let's see. Arf, arf. Yeah. Ooh, ouch. Don't do that. Backgrounds experimental. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Experimental.
Experimental. Do 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 do. There you go.
Yep. I'm getting the hang of this.
Yeah, the devil clown, right?
Okay.
I'm just gonna wait another minute. Also, I want you to know I'm recording this. I don't know why.
Oh, maybe I shouldn't do this.
Oh, good point.
Okay. All right.
All right. Well, more people may join in the. I mean, 8 people emailed me this morning, so um, I am going to write down some of your questions as you ask them. Because guess what? People are going to ask these questions in CPE 100 when you're enrolled here in the fall. So, okay. So, questions, fire away. Nobody has
Um,
questions?
I would. I would like to start.
Sure.
So this is my first hangout, so I don't know if you guys have talked about this already in the last one, but so I chose computer engineering because I thought it was a little different from computer science, which is like whatever. And I like that little mix of. I believe you told me it was 70-30 or 60-40, where 60% is majority is computer science and the other is electrical. The other part is electrical.
That
And
sounds right.
that really intrigued me because right now everyone's going into software, but looking at Internet of Things and all these new things coming out with hardware and software mix, I thought this was an interesting option. And so I just wanted to ask you, do computer engineers have the same level of I guess jobs, like to find jobs like as computer scientists? Computer scientists are everywhere. And so with this little mix of electrical engineering, would it add as like an added advantage, or would it disadvantage us from getting the same jobs as a computer engineer because we don't have that 100% software experience?
Yeah, so great question. There is not a job that a computer science student is eligible for that a computer engineering student is not eligible for. Um, a- and then you do have this added hardware component.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and actually, it's kind of if you ask the typical computer engineering student, it's the hardware is the part they typically like the least. um, but it does open up some jobs, right? Because you could be the next chip designer, for instance. We have CPU students who work at Intel
Mm-hmm.
and work on the next chips. You brought up IoT, Internet of Things. If you haven't heard of that, Google it when we're done. Um, I was just actually on a con call with Intel Taiwan yesterday,
Okay.
and I'm bringing in 20 IoT boards from my grad class to play around with this fall.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that a computer science student would have access to.
Exactly.
So, how do we achieve this kind of superset of computer science? Well, first of all, the computer engineering students take all the major required courses that a computer science student has to take, with the
Okay.
exception of one class, computational theory.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, the next thing is that we have 12 more required units, so 3 more required classes than computer science.
Uh-huh.
And then since we're making you take hardware, you have less flexibility in your curriculum. So a computer science student has the ability to take 6 technical electives, while a computer engineering student only has the ability to take 3. So that's the cost, but there's a benefit to it.
Mm-hmm.
The nice thing is if you want to switch from computer engineering to computer science and you do it even after your 4th quarter, you would lose 2 units of credit.
Okay.
Okay. Basically because I don't know, there's a class, it's like electronics manufacturing. It's a 2-unit class you take, IME 156. You may be registered for it in block scheduling.
Mm-hmm.
And that class doesn't count towards a computer science degree.
I see.
But other than that, it's you could still easily graduate in 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So starting in computer engineering is a good start. I mean, the same applies in computer science. You could start in computer science, and as long as you change by the end of your 3rd quarter to computer engineering, you would still easily graduate in 4 years.
Perfect.
Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Fire away. No one.
Do you
I
personally
guess
use
I could
Mac
go.
or Windows?
Um, so this week you sent an email to me. I don't know if you sent the email to everybody else, but it's about Polylearn.
Sure.
And well, I did look at it, and but I'm still not sure if it's like a online course or it's like a place that you can see what's due to which day in the week,
Yep.
or it's basically scheduled.
Sure. So that was for everybody enrolled in CP 100. I sent an email out. I should actually check on that. The Polylearn website is just a resource. It's a way for me to communicate to you. I can post homework assignments. I can post information, but the class is actually face to face, 1 hour per week at 11:10. In our performing arts center in the basement, and it's face to face. Actually, it's not even going to be all. There are like 12 weeks in the fall quarter. It's only going to be maybe about the first 6 or 7 weeks.
Yeah, I noticed that after the 7th week, there is nothing there.
Right. I reserve the right to add something there, but at that point in time, I've said what I needed to say. What's the point of the class? The point of the class is to help you really try to understand what is this major that you've enrolled in, is to help you try to understand what are the, I don't know, trials and tribulations of the computer engineering program. It has to do with, I don't know, just information out. Really, it's a
Yeah.
in my opinion, it's kind of a crappy class because, well, I mean, for the most part, you're just going to come there and you're going to sit there, and maybe you'll be inspired or interested by some portion of the class, but the rest of the times you're just going to be kind of asleep, and that's not a good use of my time or yours, right?
Okay.
However, the best part of CP 100 is we're going to assign you into mentor groups. And so you're going to have an upperclassman mentor who's a CPE student, and you're going to be placed in a group of probably about 4 other freshmen with that mentor, and I'm going to ask you to do a few things together. And these few things are like just have lunch together, maybe go downtown together, go climb Bishop Peak together. The point is really for you to then have informal discussions with somebody who's done there, been that. So that's the best part of the class. I'll be frank. There is a project that I'm going to assign in the class, and that's what you can do with the last few meetings. I'm thinking of just making it a kind of video mashup of what computer engineering means to you, or what your freshman year, your first quarter freshman year is like. Just something as kind of a team building exercise, not necessarily. Well, actually, I'm kind of interested in seeing them. There's also, I guess, another homework assignment that I'm a little bit excited about is that we have innovation and entrepreneurship is a growing activity on this campus for students, and so the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship has something called an elevator pitch competition, and in this competition, students submit 90-second YouTube videos for evaluation from actual venture capitalists. And last year, electrical engineering's top three teams were selected, and they got some prize money to develop their idea. And these are freshmen, right? And that's pretty cool. So, I want to get in on that, I guess. So, yeah. So CP 100 is face to face for the most part.
Okay.
And I take attendance. You show up, you sign your name. I enter all the names in the grade book. If you make 6 out of the 10 classes, you pass the class. Otherwise, I don't even know how I'd make you retake the class. That seems silly, right? So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So how is the format of your classes? I know it depends on with each professor. How do you personally teach classes?
Sure.
Is it going to be would you allow computer notes, hand notes, or would you give us a presentation and just how is your usually
right? Depends on the class. Last quarter I taught in an embedded systems class, so it was microcontrollers.
Uh-huh.
All of my lectures are actually online videos. I review them at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe 10, 15 minutes. I usually find that is about the attention span that is kind of in the wheelhouse of most students. And then, but then I offer. Then there's a tutorial that they have to do, and the tutorial makes them actually use the parts of the microcontroller that I had described in the video lecture and then reviewed in the 10, 15 minutes. And then there are projects that are overarching for the class. And so, I don't know, let's see, examples of projects that students, they get to actually propose their own project and develop it over the quarter. And so I'm trying to think last year, probably one of the coolest ones that a student, this girl she made a hula hoop with LED lights in it, and
Okay.
she had an accelerometer in there, and it would determine kind of the rate of rotation of the hula hoop, and it could, based on that, it could actually make a color look like it's standing still on the LED on the tricolor LED lights as she's hooping. She's kind of a
Wow.
hippie girl, so that was a cool one, and I'm surprised nobody's made a beer pong table yet, because that seems like something that they would do. Um, let's see, other ones. I had a student make a this before IoT was a word, Internet of Things. They made a office sensor network for their parents owned a couple office buildings, and he made a sensor network that was able to detect whether or not doors were open or closed, windows, and then could also turn on the air conditioning in the
Wow.
place. And so I don't know, it was kind of cool. He made some boards for that out of the class, and actually then implemented it in his parents' house. So I mean that's kind of high watermark there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
10 week
Definitely.
10 week quarter, that's tough to do. Um, yeah, Jacob went on to work at Lab 126. Went on to I guess the first product he worked with was the Kindle Fire for
Ah,
Amazon, and
cool.
now he's at Apple. He got
Perfect.
he got poached. So I guess I tend to try to flip my classrooms, is what we call it. So it's lecture for homework, and then doing things for class time.
Hmm.
And it works for a lot of students once you get used to it. But it does put extra emphasis that the homework is important, right? Because if you don't do your homework, if you don't watch the lecture, right, then you've got to do it during class time, and then I can't be there and help you in the doing part, right, when you get stuck.
Mhm.
So something keeps getting on my glasses. It's like something on my eyelash. Sucks. All right. Next. Nothing, huh?
Okay, I have a question.
Very good.
So, what is like the main difference between like the senior projects and the capstone projects?
All right, good question. Um, Gosh, I hope at some point in time we can collapse the two experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so Cal Poly has a long history that senior project is a required thing, and senior project in the past had always been a very individual experience, individual student, individual professor. So we still have that. So for the most part, senior projects are very individual. You approach your professor, who you've gotten to know over your first 3.5 years, and either you propose a project, or maybe they have a project and they want you to work on it. And so it's a very mentorship type thing. Let's see. Last year, my senior projects, I had a girl made a solar powered automatic chicken coop door opener, because I have a chicken coop at home. And so the sun would come up and the chicken coop door opens, sun goes down, the chicken coop goes down. And then my wife also wanted the ability to manually open it with her iPhone. So she has a Bluetooth interface there. Unfortunately, the Bluetooth doesn't quite get to her bedroom, so she has to actually go out to the deck and hit the app button to open the door or close the door. So that's an example of a senior project. Um, so it's very kind of individual. The nice thing is that you have a lot of autonomy. You can propose something to a professor. It could be something you're very interested in, and so that's a really cool thing. Capstone, it's more like industry. You have a client. Last year, I had 6 projects in the capstone class. 3 were industry sponsored, and 3 were for professors on campus. And so, let's see, the industry sponsored ones, was it 3 or maybe 4? 4 maybe. The Yaksawa servo company, they paid us to have a capstone class to make a robotic foosball table, right, to play foosball.
Mm-hmm.
We had computer vision above, servos turning the players, and the servos could really cheat because, one, they can move all 4 ranks at the same time, but then they can spin it inhumanly fast, and you can, I don't know, it was unfair. Um, let's see, we have Sandia National Labs. We made an 80 node Jetson board supercomputer. So the Jetson is a NVIDIA board. It's got a dual core ARM processor on there and then 180 CUDA cores on it. So I mean, whatever, 80 times 180 CUDA cores. It's a decent sized cluster. The nice thing about the boards are that they use 10 watts of power, and so that scales nicely. Sandia has a supercomputer called Titan. Titan uses $1 million of electricity per day. Their power budget for the year is $360 million for that computer.
Oh.
But they do, I mean, they're doing all the stuff NSA doesn't want you to know about. They're doing it there. So we're trying to create a lower power, maybe not, certainly not as high performance, but maybe it scales better with power. We had a Western Digital. It's a kind of personal cloud caching system. We're trying to use machine learning to understand how people use their media in the evenings off their MyClouds. There was one more. We had another corporate one. It was Do Mobility. They're an Internet of Things company. We were trying to create a software infrastructure that would allow the layman to create some logic to, let's say, use one sensor and then on the internet, based on that sensor reading, do something. So basically that logic framework, if this, then that. We were trying to use the Scratch programming language, which is created by MIT, to allow the layman to do that on Internet of Things devices. And then my two, I guess, campus projects. One was a biology professor. He measures the color in flower petals for his science. The way they measured the flower or color is they used swatches of color from Home Depot and they matched them up, right? And they say, oh yeah, that looks right. The problem is, different people have different, I guess, color acuity, and also like time of day and all of those things. So repeatability was a big problem there. Not just accuracy, but repeatability. So we created a handheld device. You push a button. You put the sensor on the end of the device on the flower petal. You push a button, it reads the color, and so it's very consistent. At least the accuracy is something we need to improve still. And then, God, I can't remember the last one. But in any case, I had 6 teams between 3 and 6. I guess the biggest group was 6 students, and so they have to interact weekly with a client. They have to actually understand what the client really wants. Somebody, turn your speakers down, please. I don't know who just joined. I'm getting feedback. Let's see. You're muted. Hey, Luke, can you try?
Sure.
Try muting yourself.
I'll mute myself.
Yeah, try it. Actually, the feedback went away, so you could probably unmute yourself if you wanted to.
Yeah, I have headphones, so it shouldn't be too bad.
Yeah, right. Okay. So you're putting. Actually, the hardest part of the class is really understanding what the client wants. The client thinks they want this, but you really have to dig down and ask the client lots of questions. And it turns out the client wants something actually really a little bit different. And that's actually the hardest part of the class is delivering on what the client really wants rather than what they say they want. Because the clients we pick, a lot of times you're not dealing directly with an engineer. I don't know. That's not always true, but sometimes they're like, or if it is an engineer, that what they're actually looking for is for students to be creative. Companies realize that us older folk like me, we don't use technology in the way that you guys do, but at the same time, if we're in the business of selling technology, we need to be there in the right place at the right time. So I think that's really another thing that the companies are buying when they're in the capstone class is they're trying to buy the way you use technology.
Cool. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's see. I'm gonna go over a few things, I guess. Um, so hopefully you have your AP. You have your classes by now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So AP credit. Um, let's see. I'm gonna put a web link here. So this link here, this is it lists what classes you should get out of for AP credit. Um, you can check it out later or now or whatever. Um, the word on the street is you should take the credit that where credit is due. You shouldn't retake a class. Our statistics are showing that students who, let's say you get like a 3 on the AP Calculus BC exam, right? The tendency for students is to say, okay, maybe I'll take the Math 141 credit, but I'm going to enroll myself in Math 142. But the word on the street is that that doesn't work very well because the students have already seen that material, and a lot of times they end up slacking off. And then they get creamed on the first midterm, and then it's just hard to recover. And it's really shocking when you're basically all A students, and then you get a C in your first calculus class. Ah, right, that sucks. So the general recommendation is to take the AP credit that when you have it. Now, I don't want to make that a blanket rule. I think if you're really uncertain of your ability and you really want to roll back a class or two here or there, and you think that'll make you successful, I don't want to second guess you. I want you to be successful. Did anybody get less than 12, 13 units? 13 units? All right, that's good. I've been watching the Cal Poly parents Facebook page, and I've been seeing that some parents are complaining that their freshmen didn't get block scheduled into enough units. I wouldn't recommend taking any more than 17 units your first quarter. Preferably somewhere around the, I don't know, 14, 15 number. What we do find is that the primary mode for students to be on academic probation their first quarter has really nothing to do with academics. It has more to do with, I don't know, partying too much, not studying. That's a big one. I've surveyed the last 2 years. I've surveyed the freshmen coming into CP 100. On average, somewhere between 7 and 8 hours a week of studying is what a freshman, what a student did in high school, outside of class. You may be a little bit higher, you may be a little bit lower. We will be asking, like, if you're taking 16 units, we're going to be asking for probably about 30 to 40 hours of studying a week. And that's not easy for everyone because if you haven't studied like that before, you need to learn how to study basically, right? And it's tricky. So the best tip I have to give to you is when you have your class schedule, and let's say you have a 2-hour block between one class and another, schedule yourself to go to the library and study by yourself, or find a buddy, right? You're gonna have a few people that are in some of your common classes together, or maybe in your dorm or whatever, and find them and schedule study time. It's really easy to want to spend the time and just sit on Dexter lawn because the weather is beautiful here, and let's see, we're all guys here, right? Okay, and the girls are beautiful on this campus, and that it's a really tough thing to actually force yourself to study. The guys are beautiful too, if that's your cool. Just not you guys. No. Kidding. Yeah. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things. There are other Anybody here taking community college classes or anything like that?
I took some.
Okay.
I have quite a few done already.
Okay. In which case, then uh, you want to go to. If you want to find out what classes those all qualify for.
I already looked at the Poly Planner and they have them already like crossed out the ones that I've taken.
Okay. So assist.org.
Mm-hmm.
That has all of the equivalencies if you're in state. If you're out of state, it's a little bit trickier. I would come see me for the equivalencies if you're out of state. Now, after your freshman year, you're probably not getting an internship unless you have a wealth of programming experience already, in which case then you could potentially, and maybe, I would say about less than 10% of our students after their freshman year get internships. But so that's a good time to maybe take a class or two. You can find some pretty cheap online experiences that will transfer in. If you ever have a question, you can always ask me if Dr. Oliver, will this class transfer in? I can take a look and I'll say yeah, probably yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a good way to lighten your load, especially as you move down the curriculum and the classes get increasingly demanding. So while we're on the topic of internships, so yes, most freshmen don't get internships. And actually, I think I posted this potentially in the CPE 100 website already. After your sophomore year, if you have above a 3.0 GPA, you're probably going to get an internship offer. You'll have to go to the career fair. You're going to have to interview. You're going to have to do all that stuff. We have career fairs every quarter. It's about like the third week of every quarter. And we'll have about 300 employers that are looking for software or low-level hardware services. So you'll be very marketable. And actually, I will encourage you in CPE 100 to go to the career fair your first quarter freshman year. You'll feel like you'll know nothing, but I think you should just check it out. It's a good exercise to just talk with recruiters. You can say, I'm a freshman, I have a resume. You can, here it is. If you'd like to give me, a callback or an interview, that's great. I'm not expecting it, but really just to talk about, talk to them, get in the practice of talking with a recruiter because, it's nerve-wracking. It requires some practice. But after your sophomore year, if you have above a 3.0 GPA, you'll likely get an internship. If you have a below a 3.0, it's still pretty tricky to get an internship. Junior year, even most of our sub 3.0 GPA students are getting internships as long as they can sell themselves somehow. And the best way to sell yourself if you have below a 3.0 GPA is through project experience. And I have plenty of amazing students who have below 3.0 GPA. It's just, they had never programmed before. Intro to programming was hard for them. They got off to a slow start, and now they're great. Or they, got themselves involved with too many projects. That's another common one. Or the bad ones are I played too much League of Legends or Dota 2 or something like that. I see a lot of those students in my office too. So stay away from online gaming. I don't know. Try to stay away. I mean, we have nice internet on campus here. It's really attractive, I guess. And then, yeah, if you're above a 3.0 GPA after your sophomore year, you get to choose. And the students what they're trying to do is they want to set up an internship that's going to give them a full-time job at that company. And so Apple's a big one, right? A lot of students want to go work at Apple or Google or Microsoft, and big companies. And so we see a lot of competition there. Man, those interviews, I don't know if I'd pass them. They're tough. They are tough. Google's not fooling around when they do their interviews.
I heard that one of their interview questions was why is a manhole round and not in any other shape? I mean, you just have to use creativity.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a square one can fall in, right? So but the So some companies they definitely got to throw like kind of brain teasers at you, right? But there's a great book out there. It's called like it's like Conquering the Coding Interview. I have a copy in my office. You're welcome to borrow it anytime. You won't understand most of it now because don't understand parts of it, and I have a doctorate in computer engineering, so um, but it's basically a whole bunch of interview questions from a lot of the big top software companies, and what I have to say for interviews for undergraduates is it's all about the fundamentals. For coding, it's going to be loops. It's going to be conditional statements. It's going to be uh, maybe some basic data structure type stuff, linked lists, trees, and things like that. If you've never heard of any of these terms, don't get nervous or excited. We assume that the student has no formal programming background when they come here. Okay? And CP123 is been shown to be a great equalizer for that. It's a programming like class everybody's enrolled into. You work in groups. It's very collaborative. The students who know more about coding oftentimes help the students who don't know much about coding. It actually ends up helping both students, right? So I mean, it's kind of like med school, right? You C1, assist one, do one, or something like that, right? That's their kind of method. That's kind of what happens with the more experienced students in that class. Let's see. So yeah, I don't worry about it. Also want to say that let's see, there's a good number of our students, I'll say about 50 to 75 CPE students, maybe more like 50, I think, that are employed in town part-time during the quarter. They work, let's see, the companies are Amazon Slow. Amazon Slow, they run something called Prime services. So you may have heard of that, Amazon Prime. There's another company called MindBody. MindBody, they basically have software for like boutique gyms and stuff. You can like reserve a spot in a yoga studio or something, and you can pay online for the class and all that type of stuff. And then another company called Tapestry, which was recently acquired by Boeing, and they do logistics software, like how do we put the shipping container on this train or on this boat, and how many can we put on there, and all that type of stuff. And so those three companies employ somewhere probably aggregate about 200 students a year in computer science, computer engineering, and software engineering. And these students work probably about 15 hours a week. So it's a burden, but you're learning. And I'm working with them to find ways that students who are working there can actually get course credit. They get paid fabulously, and then they probably work at those companies over the summer as well. And so, I mean, I know one student, he was able to self-pay his way through Cal Poly through Amazon Slow, including his living expenses. He's an exceptional guy. Don't hold yourself to his standard. He actually may be teaching for us this year. AWS is a distributed computing software infrastructure. Basically, it's kind of the back end of what Amazon does, and he'll be teaching a distributed computing class in conjunction with a professor here, and he only graduated 4 years ago. Yeah, he's pretty smart. So in any case, look for those opportunities. Many of you will have come in with quite a few AP credits, and your freshman and sophomore year you'll be a little bit jammed up by the prerequisite chain, and so you'll be kind of forced to take lighter loads your freshman and sophomore year. You'll probably be hovering around the 14 to 16 unit mark rather than the 16 to 18 unit mark for the first 2 years. And that can be a very productive way, both financially as well as academically, to use your time. Trying to think.
Oh yeah, I have a question.
Go for it.
What's like the typical like homework load type thing? Like, is it projects, or I know you're talking about how you like flip the class
Sure.
and how you have the lectures at like in the dorms, well, online and stuff like that. So, what is the typical
Sure.
workload for this stuff?
Okay, so the answer is it's highly, highly variable.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on the class you're taking. Um, Programming classes, the intro to programming classes, if you have programming experience already, you'll find them relatively straightforward. If you don't have programming experience prior to coming here, you'll probably find them pretty difficult because and it will frustrate you because you're going to be sitting next to a student who's probably may have done already 5,000 hours of coding already before even stepping foot on this campus, and you're starting at zero. So obviously that student's going to like breeze through everything. It's going to take them 10 minutes to do every assignment, and it's going to take you 10 hours, right? But that's part of learning, right? That's natural. Um, on campus, you'll see these signs. It says study 25 to 35 hours per week. Generally, the campus is saying 2 hours per unit per week. Um, so that's kind of the ballpark. I tend to believe that if it turns out the most of the programming classes are the ones that you've got to find that last bug to get your program to work, and it could take you forever because I don't know, you don't see the solution, right? And so that will be the experience that you will have, and that is normal. That's part of the learning. As you get more experienced, you'll have less of those moments. But even in grad school, when I was a PhD student, I remember one day I had basically so I was writing in C, and I was using pound define statements to comment in and out code, right? And I had forgotten the day before I commented out this large chunk of code, and the next day I came in, and I was working on my code, trying to get everything to work. It was a simulation of a 64 core processor, by the way. And so I couldn't get it to work that day. And I'm like, what's going on? And I spent the entire day tearing apart my code, breaking more things and fixing. And I couldn't figure it out all day. I wasted, I don't know, 8 hours of programming that day. And fortunately, I was using a repository system where I could roll it back too. So that no,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like I was breaking it permanently, but I was breaking more things than fixing. And then I was on my bike ride home from the lab that day, and I was like, I commented that out yesterday. And so the next day I came in, I put it back in, and I was basically I lost a whole day, right? 8 hours,
Mm-hmm.
just because I had forgotten something, and that happens. That happens to the best of us. So so yes, the answer is highly variable, but 2 hours per unit per week is kind of the ballpark on average. Finals week will be more. First
Yeah.
week you won't study at all probably.
Um, I have a question relating to the programming.
Sure.
Um, so it's like a two-part question. In CP 123,
Yep.
are we going to be learning Python only?
No. Um,
No.
so why don't you guys in the chat window on your Google Hangout, why don't you tell me let's see. All right, let's do it this way. Um, I'm gonna put up a link here real quick. And in general, you're gonna find this to be I find it to be a useful thing, but you can poke around this website later. Um, but schedule.calpoly.edu is a pretty handy thing. So click on that link. That's the CP123 sections that are for next quarter. Okay.
Mhm.
If you happen to know your section, just type it in the chat window, and I can tell you a little bit more specifically about your section. I don't know if you have your schedule in front of you, but I'll talk generally. Let's see, Zoe Wood, who does sections 1, 2, 3, 4. She does computational art, and so
Mhm.
she uses a language called processing for that. And I don't, well, she has in the past. So, but I suspect that she may also use Python in the future in Pygame. Let's see, John Clements, who teaches sections 5 and 6. He uses a language called Racket, and Racket is a functional language. It's not an imperative language. And it's quite different and probably would be uncomfortable for students um, who have lots of programming experience because it's quite different. Let's see, Michael Hong's sections 9 through 12. He does Java, and it's Java games. Zach Peterson, I think he does Python, and it's going to be mostly revolving around cybersecurity. So that's
Okay.
sections 13, 14. Crowd cracking, so that's you, Rohan. And then let's see, John Bellardo. I think he's going to do iOS applications. Okay, so
okay.
What is that? Objective-C?
Yeah, objectives.
Yeah, and so that's 15 through 18. Hugh Smith, 1920. He's going to probably is C programming,
C.
and it's going to be robotics.
Oh, perfect.
Yes, I think he's going to have you mechanize bears. You're gonna go to Costco, buy these stuffed animal, rip out the guts, stick in some servos, and you're gonna make it move and stuff. Like ultrasonic sensor. I think. Don't tie me to that. Okay. So Zach Peterson again. So cybersecurity, and then Julie Workman I think is also gonna do processing and computational art, following Zoe Wood. I want to stress that, let's see, okay, Bellardo's probably the hardest of that group. So iOS. I would say in general his reputation is he's probably one of the harder guys. All of these people though are fabulous professors. And that's on purpose. That your first quarter here, you're going to get the best of the best. These are the people who care the most about student success, that they're most active on campus, that are really accessible. If you have Workman, you're in for a real treat because she's probably she was voted CPE's favorite professor last year. So, and she's not even actually she's a lecturer. She teaches for us, but she's not a professor. She's in some sense, but she also runs the women involved in software and hardware club, and I don't know. She has students over her house all the time. She has a really nice pool with a waterfall in their backyard. It's pretty cool. Let's see. Oh yeah, weird things about each of these people. Okay, Zoe Wood, huge advocate for women in computing, but also her specialty is in graphics and animation. John Clements, he is a crazy bike rider, road, mountain. I think he probably rides his bike about 200 miles a week. Michael Hongs is he's a Hispanic, which is strange, with the last name Hongs, but also came from very poor background, like financially poor. So he has that very interesting background there. Zach Peterson's probably the best dressed professor. He's our cybersecurity expert. John Bellardo, his last sabbatical was at Apple, so that's why he's doing iOS. He's also involved with CubeSat, our little 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter satellites we send into space, and he wears a cowboy hat. Hugh Smith, let's see, Hugh Smith he was the former director before me, and he actually does a lot of consulting on the side, outside of Cal Poly, and he actually donates a lot of money to Cal Poly. Go figure. As if, we don't pay him very much, so. and he donates back. That's crazy. So.
And I guess the second part of that question was, so how far down the line do we get to choose like a focus area, like either whether it's like Objective-C or Python or?
Okay. Okay, and it sounds like you're talking about programming languages in particular.
Mhm.
Let's see. The only required, let's see, in 123 it's variable. 101 is
Mhm.
currently in Python, and it will. And 102 and 103 are currently in Java, and 357, which is the next required programming class, is in C. Is in C. Those are the only required languages. They can get you throughout the entire curriculum. You may end up taking a technical elective where you may have to pick up something different.
Mhm.
I wish we did have a strong C++ class here because that would
Mhm.
really help a lot of CPE students, but we don't have that experience. Having said that, once you've learned your first programming language, it is
Mhm.
incredibly easy to learn the new one
Mhm.
because a conditional statement is a conditional statement. Loops are loops, right? Data types are data types. These are all things. It's just a different syntax. You just have to, learn the new vocabulary. The vocabulary is usually pretty dense. You can
Mhm.
probably fit them on one page. It's not like, okay, I know Spanish, now I got to learn Chinese. No, that doesn't work that way, right? Those are two completely separate things. Um, you know, it, even like Spanish to French, right? They're both Romance languages, but they're it's much harder.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I wouldn't worry about that. In terms of
Mhm.
focusing, I wish because computer engineering is so prescribed, right? You only have three technical electives. You don't really have much choice.
Mhm.
It's almost like the computer engineering major is your specialty. Okay,
Uh-huh.
um, so keep this in mind as you approach the middle of your sophomore year, your second year here. If you think you want to be able to really explore the field of the software, um, switching to computer science may be the best bet for you because you'll have six technical electives. You'll be able to explore. You'll be able to take artificial intelligence and artificial intelligence too. Computer engineering, you would really have to design it to be able to take those two courses, and it could be tricky to do so, right? Because you only have three choice. You only have three choices. And so that's definitely the downside of our curriculum. I'm trying to this fall. I'm working with the faculty to try to convince them that our curriculum should be more flexible, um, and to allow students to have more choice.
Mhm. Thank you.
Yeah. By the way, I'm sure the admissions people they try to scare you into thinking change of major is hard. I don't. I don't know if you've read their emails and stuff, but they say, okay, this is your major. It's expected this is your major, and blah blah, right? And uh, it's actually if you're above a 2.0 GPA, right? So what is that? A C average? It's really easy. You come in, you get my signature. Next couple weeks, you're done. You're in a new major. Really that easy. I will not lie. If you have a below a 2.0 GPA, it's hard because you're probably stuck in a major that you don't like. We're going to make you take more classes in the major you don't like to pull your GPA up to a 2.0, right? and and that's a really hard thing. So I mean, I philosophically I'm against that. I don't think that we should be trapping students into majors that they don't want to be in. I mean, what use is that, right? That's not doing the student any good. It's not doing us any good. You're taking classes that you shouldn't be taking, where that seat could be used by somebody else who does want to be in that class. But for whatever reason, that's the way Cal Poly is. Um, so in that sense, the earlier you want to change major, just come see me. I don't even I don't even think it's a loss if you decide to go to electrical engineering or computer science. I'm happy to sign those any day, any time. Right? That's a further refinement of your choices as a person. Right? I won't lie. It hurts me a little bit if you go to the College of Business or or philosophy or something like that. But it means that we really chased you out. Maybe I don't know. So and I hope you all feel this way and will continue to feel this way. That uh, my office is open. I don't know. If I'm not in class or in a meeting with another student in my office, just drop by, say hey. I have students tell me all the time. They come in, they took a midterm. They say, "Hey, Dr. Oliver, I aced that midterm." That's what this office is about. It's about um, you know creating relationships with students. It's the reason why I do this job. I mean, I can go out to I had an offer from Western Digital to pay 2.5 times my salary to go work there, doing performance analysis, and but I'm not going there. Well, I don't want to live in LA, but sorry, anybody here from LA?
No.
I just dissed your hometown, right? But yeah, I mean the reason I enjoy this job is I enjoy working with students, watching them grow over the years, um, tracking them after they graduate. I went to the Bay Area a couple weeks ago. I posted on Facebook, "Hey, who wants to go get a beer?" And I had 12 students show up just out of the blue.
Wow.
And it's really great. That's why I do this job, and I think that goes for almost any professor here. It's that interaction that we love. I'm gonna shed a tear now. How hard is it to double major? John says. Um, I'll be frank, John. I haven't seen a double major in a long time. The last double major I saw was an electrical engineering theater major, and he graduated in 2009. I don't think it's against the rules, but I do think it's just really hard to get the classes in two majors at the same time. And my theater electrical engineering major did not graduate in 4 years either. Um, I would also encourage you to. So a lot of times I get these questions from incoming students. Can you guys hear me still? We're good. Okay. Um, a lot of times I get these questions from students who I don't know. I think they were heavily involved with lots of clubs in high school and things like that. They were, president of the debate club or Model UN, and then this and the other thing. Um, you will find that maybe not your first quarter, not your second quarter, but eventually the curriculum itself will keep you plenty busy, and um, that for most students, I would even say probably a minor is not a good thing to pursue, at least at the beginning. It's something you save towards the end. And hopefully it's a minor that is kind of related to the major because then you can double count a lot of the units. So having said that, if you're super duper interested in double majoring, let me know and I can try to help you do that. Um, I get the feeling that the administration is also discouraging it too because when you double major, you're taking extra classes from people who could probably use their classes for their major. Um, yeah, I've never seen a CPE and EE double. But in CPE, you're going to get the heart and soul of the EE program. You're going to get circuits and electronics and digital circuits and electronics. And that's, in my opinion, what are you leaving out? You're leaving out maybe radio frequency stuff. You're leaving out power generation. You maybe and then a few technical electives, power conversion. Control systems is probably the biggest one that we're missing, I think. If you're going to robotics, you kind of want to have control systems, but you can take that as an elective. So again, yeah, you will find that you will be plenty busy just in the major. I don't want to sound scary too at the same time, but
Is Arduino an elective too?
um, let's see. We currently use Arduinos in our microcontrollers class, but we don't program them in Sketch. Um,
Oh,
we program them in C, and it's really just a platform for getting a cheap ATmega uh, with a convenient way to program them. But I'm actually probably going to move away from that by the time you guys get there. I don't know if you can see this microcontroller here. You can see it's small, this board here. It's right in the middle there. um, That's probably the board I'm going to use in the future. It's about 10 or 12 bucks. It's an AT Mega 16U4, so it's and it doesn't need a bootloader. It's a really slick board. It does everything I want it to do in the microcontroller class, and then the form factor is nice. It's much smaller than an Uno. I can hide it, and actually, so like my student who did the hula hoop,
Mm-hmm.
that was one of the challenges, right? Was that they were using an Uno board, so we programmed it in an Uno board. We had to pull the chip out of the socket. We put it on a little breadboard. We had to put a little bit of power circuitry on there, and then and a connector, and we had to fit that inside the hula hoop, right? This board can fit inside a hula hoop. So,
Yeah.
um, and it's funny because I even have smaller ones, right? Like, so this is the one I'm going to use. This is a smaller one even, the blue one.
Mhm.
It's hard to see, I'm sure, but yeah. The um, microcontrollers are getting smaller and smaller. And I mentioned like the Intel Galileo and Edison boards. I think I was talking with Intel for Internet of Things class. Um, I'll be introducing those in the curriculum, and they're a higher level of performance. Like I think the Galileo is the lower performance one, and they're a 400 megahertz uh, quark processor, and then the Edison is an Atom processor at like 1.2 gigahertz, and and actually the Atom processors can run Windows if I don't know if you wanted to, or Linux or um, and I think those will that level of processor will probably be the backbone of what we call the edge of the Internet of Things, right? The individual sensors will still probably end up using little guys like this, right? But once you collect all the data from all the sensors, you'll want to do some processing on the edge there, so you don't have to. I have an example actually. I have a student. We're doing this. The original thought was we're going to put a webcam up at Starbucks at the Union here, okay? And because the line gets really long at Starbucks, I mean really long, like 100 people long, okay? And if you have 15 minutes before your class and the line's 100 people long, you're not going to go there to get coffee, right? Because it's too long. But you'd like to know that before you actually show up. So the original idea was we're going to put a webcam up there and we'll just show people in line there. And you can go to the website, look it up, done, right? But then we had some privacy concerns that were addressed, right? People don't want themselves on camera. So then what we started doing was we're using computer vision to automatically count the people there, okay? And we're having some problems. For the biggest one's the occlusion problem. If a person's standing in front of another person from the angle of the camera, how do we count that person behind there? The other thing is the baristas, and we capture the baristas in there. They're not people in line. We don't want to count them. So we can black out that area. We also get weird things like lighting, time of day, glare, those type of things, or umbrellas. If two people are if they're kind of overlapping, is that two people or is it one person? What do we consider the average size of a person? If the blob that we detect is larger than the bounding box, then maybe that's
And,
actually two people, right?
and what language are you guys using for this?
Okay, so that's mostly in C++.
C++.
It's using a framework called OpenCV, Open Computer
Mm-hmm.
Vision, and we're trying to we want to package it up. We want to have it so we buy an off-the-shelf webcam that has a USB. It plugs into an NVIDIA Jetson board, okay, and that's a plug-and-play then we want to add a Wi-Fi system to it, so you can just
Mm-hmm.
you can put it somewhere, plug it into the power socket, and leave it there, and use some machine learning to learn what is the line and what is not the line, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know it won't ever be 100% accurate, but you probably don't care if the line is 3 people or 4 people, right? If it's 3
Yeah.
people versus 50 people, that's a big difference, right? I actually think it's going to be, I think what we'll provide as data as, low, medium, medium, high, OMG or something. So yeah, that's a project that I'm working on. I have a master's level student who was a computer engineering undergraduate. He's a master's in EE, and he's the main guy, and he's got a few students who are probably going to do their senior project on it this year, and even got freshmen on the team as well, mostly kind of on the back end. You know, he implements some sort of computer vision algorithm, and he has to see if it's accurate, and so they look at a picture and they count the people and they see if this count is accurate, and if they notice any trends there, they report it back. And that's how a freshman gets involved. But then eventually they get writing, testing scripts and things like that too. And open computer vision is pretty accessible. It's the once you understand the underlying data structures of OpenCV, it's a pretty easy thing to learn. So. Yeah. How did we get on this tangent? I don't know. Oh yeah, edge processing. So the NVIDIA Jetson board here, we're using the CUDA cores on there to do the image processing locally. So the only thing that comes over Wi-Fi is a number, right? It's the number of people in the line. And so there's no privacy concerns then, because out of this box it's just numbers that are coming out, right? There's no identifying factors. And so so that's an example of an Internet of Things device where the processing needs to be done on the edge and you need high performance. Okay. I'm glad I remembered what I was talking about. Any final questions? I probably got a jet soon. My aunts are in town from Montgomery, Alabama. Can you believe that? My dad was born and raised in Montgomery, Alabama. He was a EE professor at Boston University. And he studied atmospheric things, so ionosphere, I guess. And I tried my darndest not to be like my dad. But when I realized that I really enjoyed teaching, I was a much happier person. So, but it took a certain amount of maturity that I didn't have when I was in my 20s, I guess. It took me till I was about 30 years old to understand that. All right. Seeing no final questions, I want to say I'm super excited for this fall. College is probably, everybody will say this, they're the fondest years of your life. You'll remember them forever. And sometimes it's actually the hard times you remember too, and it'll make you stronger. The defining characteristic of a successful computer engineering student has little to do with how smart you are, how hard you work. You have to work hard, I guess, but it's really about using technology in creative ways. And so it's all about being creative. As an engineer, you have the ability to make technology do things for the betterment of mankind. And I think that's the people don't realize that, right? When you say, "Oh, I'm going to be a computer engineer," they're like, "Oh, you must be good at science and math or something like that, right?" Or, "Oh, that sounds really hard." But that's not why we do it, right? It's because we can do things with computer engineering. Anything that moves or is interactive or does anything intelligent in this world has a computer engineer behind it, and that's really the key. Oh, here we go. Vin with the last minute question. Nice, man. How come on the CPE flowchart Physics 3 is listed before Physics 2? I don't really know. I do recommend taking them that order. Physics 3 is actually electromagnetics, and Physics 2 is like classical Newtonian stuff with calculus. So yeah, I would take them in that order if you can. But if you can't, you can take them out of order. And we'll cover a lot of these things in 101 or in CP 100. Sorry, all flowchart nuances and things like that. Yeah, there's a lot of weird things with our curriculum. It was never. I'll give you back in the day when they created computer engineering 27 years ago now at Cal Poly. It was they had to make it budget neutral for the two home departments, right? Because It was exactly 50% of the major courses were in electrical engineering and 50% was in computer science. So the two departments then could both say they're equally supporting the program. I tend to think that because the CPU is the new transistor, and that most of our students are not designing things with transistors, that we don't need to focus so much on electronics and circuits. And we need to do a little bit more low-level programming, and we need to shift our curriculum to match the skill set of what a computer engineering student should have when they graduate. Having said that, I've looked across all of the different computer engineering programs. I don't know, I wouldn't say all of them. No, a couple dozen at least, and they all pretty much look like what we have here. But just because other people are doing it this way doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. But it's hard. It's a hard thing to say. Hey, computer science, I want my 550 computer engineering students to take more of your classes and less of electrical engineering classes. How does the funding go for that? How do they get the instructors for that? Because ultimately we need to teach the classes. And so I think that's kind of like the curriculum was never really designed in an intelligent manner. It was designed in a budget requirement manner. And so Physics 3, Physics 2, it's maybe an artifact of that. Physics 3 is more related to what you need to know in computer engineering. Physics 2 is required for all engineers, though. If you have engineer in your degree, you need to take those physics classes. Okay. Peace.
Thank you so much.
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
And we got one more of these too. Email back if you want to do it again in, I think, about a week.
Perfect.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Have a good one.
You too.
Thanks.
Thank you.